Hey, thanks, patrons, for tuning in to our second ever interview. I promise before we have another one of these, it'll have some kind of name that I won't fumble nearly as much. But we're super excited to bring you, a few five, six, seven questions with Josh that are super spoilery about Mallory. So if you haven't read it yet, don't listen. Seriously, don't listen unless you're not going to read it. And there's other great stuff that's not Mallory specific that we get into that I didn't expect to hear. So here we go. Spoiler interview with Josh Malerman.
All right, so we talked about Mallory a bunch on the normal interview, and now that we have a little bit more breathing room to talk about other stuff, one of the things that I thought was just one of the most impressive parts of the story of Mallory was the kind of red herring that the blind person seeing the creature was. So because it set the tone for Mallory being extra paranoid, but then later on you find out that it was just someone lying. So like, I don't know, the execution of it was so great. Maybe I'm building it up more in my head than you think about it, but just a wonderful part of the book.
Oh man, thank you. No, I'm extremely excited about that thread, man. Are you kidding? Like, because at first I wasn't and when you asked the question before, I couldn't give the full answer.
Right.
Which is like when I first started thinking of Annette, I was like, oh man, a blind woman gone mad. This is such a good thing. And then I was like, how do you put it? By making Mallory, she was justified in being extra paranoid because of Annette, really. And just because, 17 years of this have to turn you into a total lunatic.
Right.
But then Tom was right also in that she was being paranoid because it turned out that woman was lying. And Olympia was freaking hiding that the whole time.
Yeah.
So that Annette story really almost works as like a centerpiece between all three of them, and all three of them make sense off of her. So I was really excited about that, actually. Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. So I found it fascinating that there was a potential that children who grew up knowing about the creatures might not be affected by them, which was brought up as a theory, right? That's presented to Tom. But the fact that Olympia has been able to see them her entire life was a little threw me, absolutely, in a good way. I guess one of the things that we talked about in our spoiler talk for the review is I think I may have referred to her in a very derogatory way when I said, why wouldn't
you called her a little bitch?
I might have called her a little bitch.
Oh my God, I'll fight you.
So I guess as the creator, what was your reasoning for? And I get from a story structure standpoint, right, that it was good for her not to know, but as a person, she put like her family through some steps for a long time that maybe didn't need to be there.
I think that I started to see it almost as sexuality in a sense, but like not meaning that Olympia, not meaning that I even know Olympia's sexuality, to be honest with you, which maybe I should because I write all these characters. But anyway, but I almost started to see it like that. Like Olympia had been raised by someone who like hardcore, we'd never look. And so Olympia would be like suppressing this knowledge because it's almost like the complete antithesis to the, not religion that Mallory ascribes to, but in a sense, right? Mallory lives by the fold entirely. Like that is her thing. And Olympia telling her this. Now, the problem, and it's such a huge fucking problem, is how much she could have helped them along the way. Like, if they knew for all this time. But then if you also think about it, though, so she was only a kid in Bird Box, right? And then at the School for the Blind, she's working up like, she's starting to discover herself a little. Now they take the long, not even that long trip from the School for the Blind to a camp, summer camp, where they stay for 10 years. So when she didn't really have to say it there. Like there any like danger. It's not like they're always on the road. We just catch them whenever they're on the road. That's the time our lens catches them. So there's a lot of time where Olympia's like, Mallory and Tom are saying some things outside, and then she would say, no, there's not. And Mallory and Tom would believe that it was because of her ears.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
in a way, her keeping that secret kind of still works. And in another way, it works because, kids are scared of or people are scared to express their true identity, their sexuality, their interests, and what a silly thing, right? What a silly list of things to be afraid to express. But then it's like that, but that Olympia represents that in a way for me. Whereas Tom's the opposite. He's like, fuck, man, I'm going to tell Mom that this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
I like that explanation too, because there was plenty of examples throughout the book where Olympia, without explicitly revealing how, had an intuition that helped them. So she was able to keep her secret, her shameful secret, but still use it to benefit the family.
Yeah. And then I didn't know. I didn't know. I think I was in a interview with the producers of the movie, or not an interview, but a discussion or something with the producers of the movie, and they were like, and I was like, and so Olympia can see, and they were like, oh, that's great, and they're like, why can she see? And I had no fucking reason or and on the spot I said, because her she was still connected to her mom when her mom saw one and went mad. And they were like, oh, that's a great reason. And I was like, oh shit, that was good.
You're
I was like, whew,
dodge that bullet. That's great.
You said something kind of interesting, and again, and here you go. If you want another short story, Olympia's sexuality would be kind of a weird thing. Now she read a lot, so but Tom, on the other hand, I wonder. Now in my head, I'm wondering, how does your sexuality develop when, you're with your mom and your sister and literally nobody else for 16 years, and you don't have, at least like I said, Olympia's got books, right? So she can kind of figure out, start to develop some type of, this reminds me of that old ass movie, The Blue Lagoon, right? Those kids are stranded and they're really, really young. And it's kind of, but it's an interesting take because you gave them basically their own Blue Lagoon. So it'd be interesting to see how that developed.
I think, and I'm not trying to be funny or weird, I think there's absolutely no doubt about it that Olympia and Tom would have started exploring each other's bodies. If they're turning 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and it's a similar thing that I ran into with Inspection, where I'm like, shit, what do I do with this? But I just, and it's not like, I feel like the minute you introduce something like that, it's so potent and so exciting and so interesting to all of us that it dominates the story.
Right.
It's
Sure. It's like if I put in, but I feel like I could have got away in Mallory. I think it maybe even would have helped the book a little bit to mention that maybe there had been a moment of exploration between them. I think that actually would have been fine. And I think that sometimes that's a fault of mine, is that I think that except for that one story I didn't finish, I think all my stories are. I sure finished that story, just not on paper. But anyway, so I think that my books are a little sexless, to be honest with you, and I think that there's Jesus, in Bird Box, I don't even know the name of the dude who Tom's dad. I don't even know. There's no mention of the night Mallory got pregnant. Unburied Carol, Dwight. There's no way he's having sex with her. Carol's in a dark state the entire time. No sex is going on there. Inspection. It's oh my God. It's even intentionally trying to be avoided.
The whole point. Yeah.
And Mallory is sexless in its own way too. And I think that I could fucking loosen up a little there. And that if I wanted to expand a little bit in there's a million ways I want to, just like you guys want to, and just like everyone else wants to in the world and art and life, but that would be one thing. Hey man, it's okay, you can add a little bit of it doesn't have to become you're not all of a sudden writing a raunchy novel. It's okay to pepper some love or sex into these books. Mallory I can't even imagine her with a fucking boyfriend. Could you guys? No way.
No.
Oh yeah, it's the guy that runs the train, Dean.
Well,
right?
yeah, all right, yeah.
Yeah, see, now we got a third book.
That's the new love interest. We even joked
Right.
about it when we were talking about the book that now that and this kind of goes into the next question I have, but like now that Mallory can take a breath, like what's next for her? She's probably going to go ride that train and hang out with that dude for a while.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope she does. Actually, God, yeah, I really hope she does do that. Yeah. It's funny, I think of her as like a friend and a sister, and when you just said that, I'm like, oh my God, she met someone.
Exactly. And the thing that I wrote, I'm going to read it exactly how I wrote it. Was it important to give Mallory a fucking break finally?
At the very end?
Yeah. Like,
Yes.
like, was that a very intentional, like, I need to give her.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't, Okay, so I've seen like a few people have said the ending's a little rushed. Allison listened to it on audio book recently, and she said it was a little rushed. She thought, but then we talked at length. Okay, I have a natural sort of aversion for two things. One is an action. Let's go to Unbury Carol. So Moxie and Smoke finally meet up with each other, and it's just not my style to have like a 30 or 10 whatever page, however long it is, gunfight between the two, or a fight. To me, it's so much more interesting. Moxie walks right up to him, grabs him by the hair, shoots him in the chest, done. It's like, oh shit, we had that whole build up just for that. So I have a natural aversion towards sort of action scenes in a, like physical combat, like action scenes, that kind of stuff. And I also have a natural like inclination to sort of get out of the fucking room once the main tension is pulled. And in Mallory, and in Bird Box, it was the first scene. So there's not much on the river after that till they get to the School for the Blind. And in Mallory, it's finding her dad.
Right.
And so that moment come, could you have written another 100 pages of what Tom had done and killing Gary? And yes, 100%. This book could have been 100 more pages. But I don't know. I have Allison, to me, it was like the moment was finding dad and then giving Mallory that moment that you said, the break. That's all that was like on my mind. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, and I talked at length to the editor about this, like, is it too much that all this happens in the same sort of like series of events at the end? And she was all for it. And I told her, I was like, I can keep going on this or that. And she's like, no, I think I like that the way this happens, blah, blah, blah. But I did know that I needed Mallory to fucking see one, man. It just,
Yeah.
And so this almost feels like too spoilery, but I wrote a scene where she sees it and goes mad. A version. I wrote a version where she sees it and goes mad, and it ends with her mind taking flight. And I was drunk when I wrote it, and I started crying. I was at Allison's folks' place in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and I walked outside, and I was like, I feel really weird. She's like, what's wrong? I was like, I just wrote like a scene where I don't even want to talk about it. I felt really weird. I had like Mallory lost her mind, and I think I made the right choice not using that one. I think that might have been just like, dude, what? Oh my God! But then it's also like a fitting end to Mallory's story, also. So I'm not sure what to make of that. But I did write that. I did write that not working out for her at the end. And it's in a drawer in my office.
I think that personally, I think that would have been a very good end as well. So I don't know that I can pick one over the other. What I do want to say, though, is just sounds like you like avoiding tropes, right? Because this could have gone a different way, right? Where Gary captures Mallory and explains his whole plan, but gives her a chance to get, you know what I mean? Or the love, love interest through the books. And I spent a lot of time.
I saw a couple, and I'm not ripping on people, but I saw like a couple of reviews, and maybe you guys even said this. I don't know. I don't think so, because I've been pretty much avoiding stuff. It's only been out for a week, and but But there was a few people that are like, he played it safe here, or oh, Malerman played it safe. I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. What are you safe? Like, dude, let me tell you about. I don't want to like get anyone in trouble. I'll just say I had voices in my ear while working on this that weren't my amazing manager or agent that were like wanted Sarah Connor, dude. That wanted major expansion on the creatures, like, and knowing exactly where they came from, and wanted like the action, like you were just talking about, like the standoff with Gary and this and that. I'm just like, dude, that's just not. Number one, that's not my style, and number two, that is not Mallory's style to be like a leader of the like resistance to the kid. No, just stop. I don't even want to finish that sentence, let alone write that book. You know, and so like to me, playing Mallory safe would have been doing all those things. And whether or not, if someone doesn't agree and they think the opposite, great, okay, I love everyone equally, blah, blah, who cares? And I'm glad that people review it, and if they hate it, they hate it, and if they love it, great, that's all good. But to me, playing it safe would have been T2.
Yeah. Well, I have a thought about the Mallory going mad thing, and this was my take on kind of that stuff that wraps up at the end. And Livius and I even had a conversation. So when she's in that what's it called, safer room, like the little hole,
yeah,
and she's freaking out because she thinks a creature's with her, and she basically just loses it. I describe that as her trying so hard not to go mad that it drove her mad. So I think you kind of got that. And then
yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it felt like that at oh yeah, and then for Olympia to be like, "Mom, there's nothing in there." It's like,
yeah, that reinforces
that they drove you. They drove you over the line right there, Mallory. You went over the line at that moment. Yeah, you're right. Okay,
yeah. Cool. So she had her moment of madness. It just wasn't. She saved herself from everybody else's madness, but it drove her mad. So that was kind of my take on it. So like anybody who was looking for that, you kind of got it, and probably 10 times better than if she just saw a creature, if you ask me. So yeah, that was kind of my take of that was cool that we got the madness. We just didn't get the same old madness.
Yeah, thank you. I hadn't thought of that angle at all, and I like that. And now you're going to hear me in an interview down the road and be like, well, we accomplished that with the safer room.
Yeah, no, I loved that. I love that, the whole scene, because like not only did that kind of like pent up frustration finally boom out, but like also that was the reveal moment for I can see the creatures. So it's probably one of the most like emotionally packed moments in the book.
Awesome. Alice listened to the audiobook, and she told me that Cassandra Campbell, who did Bird Box as well, and by the way, I love the freaking idea of the same narrator for both books, because I love the idea of like years from now, if someone were to just listen to both and it's the same, but Allison told me that she like completely nailed the safer room sequence, and that it was like it's the peak of the audiobook. And I'm like, all right, sweet. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I read that whole part in Sandra Bullock's voice. Like when we were talking about how you pictured her, that part, I could not stop hearing it as Sandra Bullock, like hearing her voice the whole time.
Awesome. I'm gonna look at it like that.
This is the last question I have, and this was because we didn't talk about the blind train at all, but there was a moment, and I think that it was in them learning like where the train goes or something. It was geographically kind of focused that I'm reading through it, and I'm like, man, how crazy would it be if the train ends up at the school in an inspection?
Oh yeah, no, okay, so I wrote I'm halfway through writing a script, okay? A movie script about a village of Jewish cowboys, right? I'm Jewish. I don't know if you guys know that, but I mean, you're like, of course we fucking knew that. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so I wrote a movie script about a village of Jewish cowboys, and I could tell you the whole script, but let's not do it. I'll just tell you this: the village is called Yadin, okay? And it's in the same exact spot that Camp Yadin, where Mallory and Co start. So I have this fantasy of one day making that movie's called The Italian, actually, making that movie. And whatever, we just know that before it was a summer camp, it was a village to before it was a Jewish summer camp, it was a village to Jewish cowboys in like the 1850s, 60s, etc. So I was aware of that kind of stuff. And even in like a novella I wrote recently, a woman reaches sort of the end of the woods. She's looking for something. And she's like, that way is Goblin. That way is Gibbons, which is Carpenter's Farm. No, I don't need to go there. And then she goes back the way she came. So I feel like, the first person I ever experienced that did that unified universe thing was Faulkner, because he did. I don't even know how to say it, dude. It's crazy. It's like, I can't remember, like Yakta or something county, and all of his stories took place there. And so it's like his Castle Rock, right? Or his, Derry or whatever it is, right? But like sometimes it feels like cheesy in 2020 to do too much of it. You know what I mean? Because you're like, I don't know, because you're like, yeah, Stephen King did that and Bentley Little does this and this and that. You know what I mean? So
right.
But it'd be pretty badass if they found those fucking abandoned towers.
Right. Well, it's nice that, like, people who have read, multiple books of yours could even just imagine that that's a possibility, even if it doesn't like overtly happen.
Well, I keep expecting some Michigander to write me like, dude, there's no fucking train that runs from there to there. I'm like, I know.
Not yet.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the interesting thing is, I was thinking, is the folks in inspection were so far removed from the rest of society that for all we know, the creatures were out there.
Wow, that's fun. Oh, dude, what if Richard and Marilyn went mad?
There you go.
Marilyn went mad from seeing the creatures, and then brought 52 kids, 52 babies, and brought them to the woods of northern Michigan. I love this. This is good.
I've lately been having, and this isn't even a question, but I'm so getting the feeling of it through this conversation. Like at some point, whatever the first incarnation of man was, as soon as they had the ability to speak, like someone came up with the idea of telling someone else made up stories. And I become fascinated with that idea, right? So a caveman in some grunty language, like, made up a story about how he knew another guy who was able to take down like 4 hippopotamuses with, just a stick and a rock or whatever, and that we've carried that on to this day in such a way that it kind of dominates our lives. Because if it's not a book I'm reading, then I'm watching something on TV or I'm playing a video game that has a storyline, or, you know what I mean? So it's, the storytelling goes way back. So
super fascinating thing you're talking about, dude, right? Like, because no, but literally somebody had to be first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that always super thrills me about what the kind of thing you're talking about right now. It's not just that people began telling stories. It's like, I want to know, like, literally who did it first.
Okay.
Like, what man or woman, like the very fucking first, like, it wasn't a lie. It was fiction. It was a story.
Mm-hmm. And what the motivation was. To me, that's it. Like, what made him make up a story to try and entertain someone with something that didn't happen?
Maybe for kids, maybe.
Could be.
Teaching lessons in simple language or something, yeah.
But evolving stories with you brings that to the forefront a little bit, that, that this is something we do. And I don't think we consciously think about the fact that people do this. They set down to create a narrative that didn't happen to entertain others.
Yeah, and I think that I'm imagining almost like a modern family sitting around like a living room, and they're not sure what to do, how to teach their kid this lesson. They're like, well, he shouldn't do this, and then the husband's like, well, honey, but we do this, and then she's like, well, then let's just tell him a story about people, let's just let's make up a story about people that did it right. And then it's like, okay, so son, there was a mom and a dad who didn't snort coke all day, you know what I mean? And then it's like the first story was because like they didn't know how else to teach their kid or something.
Yeah, like they know he loves the basement, but he hates monsters, so that's why there's a monster in the basement, like, so he doesn't go down there.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool. I have notes from this meeting. I have census man witness interrogation of blind woman, of mad blind woman. I have they're gone, and I have zipper catches skin.
You should probably write Alice Cooper next to that last one, lest you think it's some kind of instruction that I gave you that you should try.
Allison comes in. She's like, "What's this?"
Yes.
Are you okay?
Hey, so I guess and you had shared with us before we started recording that you really haven't had a chance to talk about the spoilery stuff. Is there anything like on your mind that you want to kind of talk about that would fall in spoiler territory that you haven't been able to cover?
Sure. I love the idea that Tom comes up with, that the only way to make these relatable is to force them to do something relatable to us. And that I think that's a really Bird Box to me has always been more of a philosophical first of all, I don't even think of it, I've said this a million times, I don't necessarily think of it as end times. I see it as a much smaller story, and in fact it's more like something like a pandemic, something to endure, that creatures could vanish at any time, we don't know. So I've always seen it more as a philosophical survival story than a physical. Like, there's not in fact, God, how many scenes is there of them eating? Any in Mallory?
I don't think so.
Not much, if there is, right?
There's talk about cans, but I don't think there's actual like meals.
And with Bird Box, I had intentionally left it out of the entire rough draft because I was like, I want to write a story like this that is only about remaining sane, not surviving or like on sustenance and blah, blah, blah. Just keeping their minds together. But the editor on Bird Box said you have to at least say that there's fucking a canned goods shelf. Like, readers are going to lose their mind. Like, they need to know that they have food. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I added it. Now, right now, I kind of wish it wasn't in there. So, I don't know. I guess with that in mind, Tom's breakthrough, the bizarreness here is that it almost becomes, this whole story almost becomes about Tom in a way. And I don't want to give some stupid Jesus angle to it. I don't mean to do that at all. But in a weird way, Mallory has no dad. Or I'm sorry, Tom has no dad. Mallory's just pregnant right away. And then she gives birth to the guy who comes up with a way to look at them.
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, I try to avoid every fucking Christian like story trope that can ask Allison. I'm like, no Messiah stories. I don't want to watch any Messiah stories. And then one time I was at a party and a bunch of people wanted to play like this, or they wanted to watch a movie or something. And I was like, no Messiah stories, because they wanted to watch like The Matrix or something. And then
that's the first thing that came to mind when you said that was The Matrix.
And they all looked over at me, and I realized that I was the only Jewish dude in the room. And I was like, no Messiah story. Those are ridiculous, And then, but meanwhile, in a fucked up way, Mallory and Tom, like, they're kind of walking that line, man.
All right, talking about Tom finding solutions and stuff made me think about it's Indian River is the town, right?
Yeah.
How my initial impression going into it before you actually got us there was that it was just the bad place because Gary was associated with it and stuff like that. But then I had at one point a revelation that the people who would save the world or save people from the creatures or find out the solution are probably doing things almost like very similarly to the crazy people who are reckless. And so that was an interesting thing that, and I'm assuming that was maybe on purpose, that you have to be a little crazy and take risks in order to, make progress. So that was
100%. I mean, that's like, so like I had a bunch of interviews where people were like, this is bizarrely timely because Mallory lives by the fold and we're in the mask era, right? And so you could kind of tell in these interviews that people wanted me to say like, yes, Mallory lives by the fold, and so should you, And of course, and by the way, of course, so should you, and we should all wear our fucking masks. Absolutely ridiculous that someone would even consider not. But anyway, But the problem with comparing that with Bird Box or Mallory is that Tom's like fucking right too. Like, and it's
Right.
exactly the reasons you're saying right now. It's like the difference between, I mean, there's a million differences between fiction and reality, but the difference between that, the people that don't want to wear the fold and the people that don't want to wear masks, is that it actually could be progress in Mallory. Like,
Right. Exactly.
all these characters, or supposedly characters in an Ohio town and Indian River, that are like, hey man, whoever's up next is up next, and if it works, then it's like you've in a way you've won the celestial lottery or something. But like whoever's up next is like, you're up, Ruth and Jim, is you two are up. Look at these underwater. That's kind of awesome in a way. That would also be its own book too. I don't know. I don't know. I still think that census. The problem is, well, how do you write that census story guy's book with? It would have to be before Mallory, right?
Right.
Because,
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes or no? I mean, in theory, in that world, like how long would it take to spread across the United States, or you mentioned in the interview, or across the world, that a two-way mirror is the solution? Because I was thinking somebody else somewhere may already have a solution. But there's no airplanes. There's one train that we know of. It's hard to get places. So it could be, I mean, if you really wanted to look at it, you could say that the greater Michigan area still is living with these creatures with blindfolds, but there's a town in Texas that they haven't worn them in 5 years.
Livius, I'm writing this down because check this out. So let's say you got airplane in book 3. So let's say you got the census guy, right? And he's doing his whole thing, and we got all these like amazing fucking short stories from him and all that, right? And then in the middle of one of his like stories or whatever, of all encounters, whatever, a fucking airplane goes by overhead.
Yep.
And then it's like, what just happened? Like, he did not know that progress was being made further away. That's badass.
And like, talk about flipping the entire thing. Like, yeah, that'd be pretty baller.
Yeah, and it would be a strangely full circle moment for me too, because when I wrote Unburied Carol originally, I wanted to specifically make a point that this was not any time or place that we're familiar with. I just wanted it to be understood. And so in the rough draft, I heavily considered having an airplane land in the middle of like the book or pass by.
Oh wow, Jesus.
So that you would be like, where the fuck is this? And then wisely, my manager was like, I just think that's a little too confusing. It just adds too much. But it works perfectly in this other thing we're talking about.
Yeah,
totally.
I was trying to, what's that M. Night Shyamalan movie? That The Village? Is that what it was?
Oh my God, I love that movie. I'm like the only person that loves that movie.
Yep. Where we're led to believe that this is, olden times or whatever through the course of the movie. And then we find out, nope, this is just some people that decided they were fed up with society.
The reveal in that movie where he's like, hi, I'm Dr. Walker, and I have an idea. And you're zooming in on all of them outside the rehab, or I guess not rehab, but the grievance, like, clinic,
Yep.
And they're all standing outside, and you're like, oh my God. I saw that in the theater with Mark Owen, my songwriting partner in the High Strung, and we walked out of there like mind blown. And right away, everyone outside was saying how dumb it was.
Oh man, that's the worst.
Well, the best part, and not to get into a dissection of that movie, but it struck me as odd, and I haven't seen it since the first time I saw it, and probably like on DVD or whatever. I was like, man, I remember there was a woman, maybe she was younger. I was like, man, she's really not a great actress, because she sounds a lot more like me than she does like these old timey people. And obviously after the reveal, or as we get later into the movie, I'm like, oh, that was perfect. It was just enough.
Yeah.
Give me an inkling that something was off about her. I thought it was the script or the acting, but in retrospect, I'm like, oh no, she showed her hand.
Yeah, because Walker, William Hurt. Oh wait, is that his name? The star? Yeah. William Hurt, right? Yeah. He played it so well, where it's like it's mostly that old timey speak, but then, it's not like perfect or something, but he was like, oh God, do I love that fucking movie. To me, that's, the reason a lot of people didn't like it is, see, this is a whole other subject, but the reason a lot of people didn't like it was because they saw the ending coming. Okay, but I don't judge a book on whether or not I could predict the ending.
Well, yeah, because you can predict it very often.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I'm like, okay, I knew where it was going, and it was fun as fucking hell to get there.
All right, now that we've dissected Alice Cooper's music and your book and your next three books, apparently, and an M. Night Shyamalan movie, I want to thank you for taking this time, and I want to let you get back to writing. So thanks so much for joining us here on a spoiler interview episode of Booked.
Hey, I want to thank you guys. I probably have said this to you guys before, but let me say it again. I just, whatever, maybe it's because I didn't get a book deal until I was 37. And this Mallory, Bird Box and Mallory stuff didn't really happen until even a year ago. I am insanely grateful for every time we talk, for when you review mine and everyone else in the genres, like books. I just want you to know that, like we're all fucking super grateful for what you guys are doing, and so thank you for having me. It's like in a way, it's like a fantasy come true, right? Think about it. Before Bird Box and everything, I was like fantasizing about doing something like we're doing right now, and so thank you for this.
All right, that was a lot of fun. I'm just gonna say, there was 100% more M. Night Shyamalan discussion than I expected in a spoiler conversation for Mallory, but all excellent stuff. So once again, thanks for joining us for this. If you have any suggestions about what to call spoiler interviews, that's cooler. We're absolutely willing to take them, and we're pretty sure we're going to try to coerce Stephen Graham Jones into doing something similar on our next episode in about a week. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks again for supporting us, and we'll be back soon.